There's someone you've ignored for far too long, someone who's been craving your attention, your care, your time. That person is you. It's time to turn inward. It's time to begin a beautiful romance with your own soul. In the rhythm of our daily lives, we often treat self love as something optional, like a luxury that can only be enjoyed when everything else is in place. Once the deadlines are met, once the children are settled, once we've taken care of everyone else, then maybe, just maybe, we'll squeeze in a moment for ourselves. A hot bath, a weekend away, a new outfit. But that's not self love, that's a pause. And pauses are fleeting. True self love is not an occasional treat. It's not the icing on the cake. It is the flour in the dough. It is the ingredient without which the whole structure crumbles. It is as vital as rest, as essential as food, and as nourishing as water. It isn't an act of selfishness, it is an act of survival. We are conditioned to believe that love should always be given away freely, generously, often without limits. And while there is beauty in selflessness, there is also a silent erosion that happens when we constantly pour from our cup without refilling it. When we care for everyone else but forget to care for the very vessel carrying that love ourselves, we begin to run dry. Fatigue becomes our second skin. Irritability finds a home in our words. And slowly, the vibrant light we once carried begins to flicker. Self love is not about narcissism or indulgence. It is about recognizing your own humanity. It's about acknowledging that your needs, your emotions, your voice matter just as much as anyone else's. It means checking in with yourself before the exhaustion sets in. It means validating your pain without needing someone else to approve it. It means being the first to stand by your side when things fall apart. Imagine a life where you are your own sanctuary, where you no longer wait for someone else to tell you that you are enough, worthy, or beautiful, where you don't beg for time, attention, or affection because you've already given those things to yourself in abundance. That is the power of treating self love as a necessity. It becomes your shield and your anchor. It centers you when life becomes chaotic. It strengthens you when the world feels heavy. It reminds you that you deserve compassion not just from others, but from yourself every single day. We don't question the need for sleep or food or air because we know they are essential to life. In the same way, we must stop questioning whether we're allowed to love ourselves. It is not conditional. It is not dependent on your achievements, your appearance, or your performance. It's not something you own. It is something you owe yourself simply because you exist. We begin each day in a rush, checking our phones, scanning our to do lists, and getting pulled into the noise of the outside world before we've even acknowledged our inner one. But there's a sacred space we pass by every morning without a second thought: the mirror. Most of us glance at it to fix our hair, adjust our clothes, or inspect our flaws. Rarely do we pause to see ourselves truly, quietly, kindly. But what if that mirror became your friend? What if it became the space where you met yourself, not the version others see, not the one hiding behind titles or responsibilities, but the real you, the tired you, the brave you, the uncertain you, the evolving you? Mirror talk is a gentle yet powerful practice. It's the art of looking into your own eyes and offering the kind of words you've waited your whole life to hear. I see you. You are enough. You're doing your best, and that's more than enough. These aren't just affirmations, they're emotional nutrients. They are the kindness we starve ourselves of while freely giving it to others. It might feel strange at first, uncomfortable even, because we are taught to criticize ourselves, to compare, to correct, but not to comfort. Standing in front of a mirror and saying, I love you to your own reflection might feel silly or selfish, but that discomfort is not because it's wrong, it's because it's unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar always feels foreign before it becomes healing. This kind of self acknowledgement doesn't require a grand setting. You don't need candles, music, or a script. Just your reflection, your eyes, and a few moments of presence. Some mornings you may find tears in your eyes. Other days you may laugh at yourself. And sometimes you may simply breathe and whisper, I'm here. And that in itself is enough. Mirror talk isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's about showing up for yourself even when it's not. It's about practicing honesty without harshness and truth without judgment. It creates a safe space for your thoughts, your worries, and your hopes because for once you're not trying to fix yourself. You're just choosing to see yourself. And as this ritual becomes a part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or drinking your morning tea, you start noticing a quiet shift. You'll begin to soften toward yourself. The way you speak, the way you stand, the way you carry your own presence in a room, everything will slowly start reflecting the self respect that was once hidden under layers of self doubt. The mirror becomes more than glass. It becomes your reminder that the most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. It becomes a space where healing begins, where validation lives, and where the practice of self love starts not from the outside world, but from the eyes looking back at you. There comes a time in life when the most loving thing you can say is not yes, but no. And yet, so many of us hesitate at that word. We worry we'll disappoint someone. We fear being labeled selfish or unkind. We are taught from a young age that love means availability, that caring means sacrifice, and that being a good person means always being there even when our own hearts are quietly falling apart. But real love, healthy, sustaining love begins with respect, and that respect must include your own well being. Setting boundaries is not rejection, it is protection. It's not a wall to shut others out with a doorway to preserve your energy, your clarity, and your peace of mind. Without boundaries, love becomes obligation, kindness becomes depletion, and care becomes control. We often imagine boundaries as confrontations, hard, cold, and abrupt. But boundaries don't need to be loud to be firm. They can be calm, they can be graceful, they can be communicated gently yet clearly. A soft voice that says, I care about you, but I also need to care for myself, can be more powerful than any argument. Boundaries are the silent guardians of your mental and emotional health. They are the unspoken contracts you create with your time, your space, and your values. So many of us carry guilt like a second skin, guilt for not answering every call, guilt for stepping back from draining relationships, guilt for not overextending ourselves. But guilt often comes from old patterns, from people pleasing, from a desire to be accepted at any cost. It whispers that you are only lovable when you are useful, agreeable, and available. But true love, real connection, never demands that you abandon yourself. Think about the seasons. Even nature knows when to rest, when to bloom, and when to retreat. You are not a machine, you are a soul in a human body, and that soul needs space to breathe. Boundaries are how we create that space, not to isolate ourselves, but to reconnect with what matters most. You might find that when you begin to honor your boundaries, some people won't understand. That's okay. The ones who love you with maturity and respect will adjust. They will listen, they will meet you halfway. The ones who push back are often the ones who benefited most from your lack of boundaries. This is not about building distance, it's about building self trust. Every time you say no when your heart needs rest, you are telling yourself, I matter. Every time you decline something that overwhelms your mind or spirit, you are choosing alignment over approval. That is strength. That is clarity. That is love in its truest form. Boundaries aren't a luxury for the privileged or the selfish. They are a necessity for anyone who wants to live a life of integrity, peace, and emotional wholeness. Because you cannot show up for others in your full light if you are constantly dimming your own. In a world that constantly urges us to improve, to upgrade, to perfect, we quietly begin to treat our imperfections as enemies. We hide them, we apologize for them, and we edit ourselves sometimes so much that we can barely recognize the person beneath the mask. But what if the very parts of us we've spent years trying to fix are the parts that make us whole? What if our imperfections aren't flaws, but fingerprints of our individuality? From childhood, we are taught to aim high, to be better, to correct ourselves. And while growth is beautiful, it becomes exhausting when driven by shame. The line between progress and perfectionism becomes thin and blurry. We begin to fear mistakes. We judge ourselves harshly for the things we feel, the way we look, the way we react. We hold ourselves to impossible standards. And in the process, we silence the tender, raw, real parts of who we are. But here's a quiet truth: your imperfections tell a story. Every scar, whether visible or invisible, is proof that you have lived, loved, and learned. That quiver in your voice when you're nervous, it shows you're human. That overthinking mind, it shows you care. That little gap in your smile, that stretch mark on your skin, that emotion you feel too deeply, each one is a brush stroke on the canvas of your uniqueness. Embracing imperfections is not about giving up on yourself. It's about shifting the lens through which you see yourself. It's choosing compassion over criticism. It's choosing softness where there was once harshness. Think of how you treat your dearest friend when they cry, when they make a mistake, when they doubt themselves. You don't point out their flaws, you hold them. You remind them of their worth. Now imagine turning that same warmth inward. We often chase perfection like it's a destination, as if one day we'll arrive at this flawless version of ourselves and finally be worthy of love, success, and peace. But that day never comes. Because perfection, as defined by the world, is a moving target. It changes with trends, with filters, with someone else's opinion. But authenticity that never goes out of style. There is a certain grace in owning your story exactly as it is. The messy parts, the awkward chapters, the unpolished paragraphs, because those are the parts that make your story relatable, human, and deeply touching. Nobody is drawn to perfection. They are drawn to presence, to the feeling of realness, of vulnerability, of truth. Your imperfections allow others to exhale and be themselves too. Think of your imperfections as old friends, familiar, flawed, but faithful. They've walked with you through your toughest times. They've taught you lessons you couldn't have learned from perfection. They've humbled you, softened you, and shaped you. And just like old friends, they don't need to be hidden. They need to be embraced with understanding, with patience, and with gentle affection. We grow not by rejecting who we are, but by including all of who we are in the light of our acceptance. If there's one person in your life whose forgiveness you've long awaited, often without realizing it, it's you. We speak so easily about forgiving others, letting go of grudges, releasing resentment, making peace with past hurts. But seldom do we speak of the silent, invisible burden we carry when we haven't yet forgiven ourselves. Self forgiveness is one of the most profound, yet most neglected acts of self love. It requires us to sit with the truth of who we were in moments we'd rather forget. The mistakes we made, the things we said in pain or fear, the chances we didn't take, the boundaries we didn't set, the people we hurt, the self we abandoned. These memories linger like shadows behind us, not loud, but ever present. We carry them in our bodies, in our habits, in the quiet voice that questions our worth when the world goes quiet. And yet, we forget we are not the same person we were back then. That version of you didn't have today's wisdom. That version of you did the best they could with the understanding, pain, and resources they had in that moment. But instead of offering compassion to that past self, we replay their decisions with the lens of who we are now, judging from a distance, punishing ourselves in subtle ways through guilt, through overworking, through self criticism, through never allowing ourselves to fully rest or feel joy. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean erasing the past, it means making peace with it. It means looking at your mistakes and saying, yes, I did that. I wish I hadn't, but I am learning. I am growing, and I still deserve kindness. It's the courage to accept your humanity, not in spite of your flaws, but because of them. Because flaws are where humility is born, where empathy begins, where depth takes root. Sometimes we hold on to guilt like a form of self punishment, believing that suffering equals redemption. But no amount of self inflicted pain can change what happened. What it can do, however, is block you from becoming who you are meant to be. Healing doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for honesty. It asks for the willingness to sit with your regret and then gently place it down so that it no longer defines you. You cannot expect to build a life of joy, purpose, and love while dragging the heavy anchor of self blame behind you. At some point, you must choose to untie that anchor not because you're trying to escape responsibility, but because you finally understand that punishment is not the same as accountability. Accountability is active, it transforms. Punishment is passive, it stagnates. And self forgiveness is not a one time act, it is a practice. Some days you will feel free. Other days the memories may resurface. That is okay. Healing is not linear. On those days, instead of criticizing yourself for not being over it, return to compassion. Speak to yourself as you would a loved one. Remember how far you've come. And remind yourself that you are not just the things you regret, you are the lessons learned, the strength gained, the softness that survived. Letting go of self blame doesn't mean denying pain. It means choosing love in the face of it. It means allowing yourself to rise from the rubble of your own judgment and walk forward not as a perfect being, but as someone who has decided to heal, to grow, and to be whole again. Life moves quickly. Days blend into nights, and weeks disappear into calendars filled with responsibilities, expectations, and endless lists. In all this movement, we often forget to pause, not out of laziness or escape, but to reconnect, not with the world, but with ourselves. And in that forgetting, something sacred is lost. The joy of simply being with ourselves in stillness, in delight, in gentle rhythm. That's where joyful rituals come in, not as luxury, not as indulgence, but as soulful necessity. Joyful rituals are not routines dictated by productivity. They are intentional moments of beauty, calm, and connection that you create just for you. They are the small, sacred acts that make you feel alive, even if the world isn't watching, even if no one applauds. They are whispers to your own heart saying, "You matter, you are worthy of this moment." These rituals do not need to be extravagant. Sometimes they are simple and quiet, making a cup of tea in your favorite mug and standing by the window while the world wakes up. Lighting a candle each evening, not because there's darkness, but because you want to bring a little more light into your space. Playing your favorite song in the kitchen and dancing not to impress anyone, but because your body wants to move, to feel, to express. They can be morning walks without a destination, long baths with oils that remind you of something soft and sweet, journaling with a pen that feels good in your hand, wearing a scent that makes you feel more like yourself. These are not habits for performance. They are gifts for your soul, for your spirit, for your nervous system that holds so much without complaint. When you create rituals that spark joy, you begin to rewire your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust that pleasure isn't something to be earned, it's something to be experienced. You teach yourself that you do not have to hustle for every ounce of happiness, that rest is not a reward, that joy can be accessed here now in small ways that build a bigger sense of belonging to yourself, to your body, to your life. These rituals are also powerful acts of self definition. In a world that constantly tells you who to be, how to act, and what to do, creating moments just for you is a quiet rebellion. It's reclaiming your time, your energy, your inner space. It's building a home within yourself where peace can live, where no external achievement is needed to feel enough. Joyful rituals also teach consistency, not the kind that demands discipline for results, but the kind that builds devotion to your well being, your softness, your emotional balance. And in that devotion, you begin to feel rooted again. Life becomes less about chasing and more about savoring, less about reaching milestones and more about finding meaning in the ordinary moments. Even on your busiest days, when the world pulls at you from every direction, these rituals become your anchor. They remind you that amid the chaos, you can still return to a moment that is yours and yours alone. They become a mirror of your inner world, a place where you are not performing or proving, but simply being fully, honestly, joyfully.